Hi everyone, in this edition of Cavebelly podcast, I'm chatting with Meg Dyos. She's an amazing woman with a spectacular story to tell. So I think it was back in 2015, Meg answered the call to join a team of women known as the Coxless Crew, who were aiming at being the first crew of 4 to row unsupported across the Pacific Ocean. Now, as you know, I've been lucky enough to contribute to a book called The Biggest Book of Yes, which is on pre-order now, and it'll be released on the 1st of August. And it's a collection of inspiring stories about what happens if you say yes more. So Meg's also contributed to this book with her massive yes, and has devoted all of chapter 13 to her part in this historic challenge. I find this story so inspiring, and I can't wait to hear more about it from the horse's mouth. So without further ado, here she is, everyone. It's Meg Dyos. Hey! Hi, Meg.
Hey, hi. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Very good. Very happy to speak to someone else who's contributed to the book. It's a really amazing opportunity that we've been given to share our stories for a great charity. Yeah, and I think it's going to do really well. Oh, sorry, that's my phone.
It's great, isn't it? We'll talk about the book a little bit later on. But first of all, have you got a drink? It's a little tradition on this podcast. We have a drink. Yeah.
I've got to be honest, the pub's open last night and we went to the pub and we are feeling the pub today. So I was thinking, oh God, another glass of wine tonight. So it's a bit of a small one.
Anyway, cheers.
Cheers.
Can you just briefly tell us then what you did? So it was back in 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah, so 2015 into 2016. I was a part of a group of women that got on a pink boat called Doris, and we rowed unsupported across the Pacific Ocean from America, San Francisco in America, all the way to Cairns in Australia. About 9,000 miles in total. And yeah, there's a lot more detail. That's kind of it. That's like the very simple version of the story.
We'll get into detail in a minute.
Yeah, that's like, it's quite, yeah.
But if you think about that, for everyone that's watching, it's quite an easy thing to say, isn't it? You know, you rowed across the Pacific from America to Cairns in Australia. But if you get a globe, not a map, if you get a globe and look at that on a globe, that's unbelievable amount of distance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a scary amount of distance when you look at it on a map. It's weirder on a map where, because I know you say globe because the globe keeps turning, but it's weirder on a map where you go from like off of the map and then you come back onto the map.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's weird. That's weird if the map's chopped in half.
Did you look at the map before you did it?
Yeah, my mum's partner had sailed across the Atlantic. So had I'd heard all of those stories of when he did it and how he thought he might die, and like I'd heard horror stories, I've heard amazing stories, I've watched all of the films of you know, I really was freaked by the ocean. The ocean is like so unknown and you just don't know much about it.
So so there's an amazing film which is on Amazon. I think it's on.
Yeah, so it was on Netflix. It came off of Netflix in May. It was on Netflix for 2 years, and now it is on Amazon and on iTunes. It's called Losing Sight of Shore.
Do you mean? Are you telling me I could have watched this for free for the last 2 years?
Yeah, too late. Too late, I'm afraid. I know.
Okay, never mind. I got it. I watched it today, and it's a brilliant film. So I watched it with the boys.
Yeah.
And yeah, it tore them away from the Xbox. They had lots of questions. They were inspired by it. Yeah, it was brilliant. So a few of these questions I've got in here are from them.
Good, because I always wonder, especially when you say but like I do lots of talks to different schools about our journey and, you know, go and kind of inspire young people to say yes and to say yes to opportunities like I did. I didn't have the experience, but got chosen still, like apply for things that you're not qualified for type thing. And I always wonder how boys walk away from it, because obviously I don't think the film is totally targeted at women. I think it's brilliant, you know, for both sexes, or all sexes, but I just wonder, like, did they walk away thinking it didn't relate to them, or did they walk away feeling inspired
I think they were just riveted in the story. I've not spoken to them afterwards and say, does that make you want to do X, Y, Z? But they were just amazed by what you guys had done. And I don't think they realised the distance until I explained to them. So you got on the boat in Samoa, and Alfie, who's the youngest one, said, well, that's quite near to Australia, isn't it? And
Yeah.
not really, Alfie, no. It looks like it's quite close when you look at a map of the world, but and then there's a clip in there of the sharks underneath biting the oars as you're rowing along, and things like that really captured their imagination, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. It's not a film. Well, it is a film about 4-6 women rowing a boat across the Pacific, but it's not specifically about females doing it. It's just about the challenge of doing it.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and obviously because no one else had done it before.
Yeah,
it's totally relatable that they can go and do it.
Your part in that film comes sort of towards the end, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah.
And what I like about your story in The Biggest Book of Yes is it actually goes quite well with the film, because it explains what you were doing while the other ladies were rowing across that ocean. So the film and your story really go quite well together.
Thank you. That was the plan, to be honest, because us on land whilst the girls were rowing, obviously there's a lot to say from us, but in terms of the story itself, it's the rowing, it's what was happening on the ocean. Obviously you don't want to hear about us pressing weights in the gym. It's about the sharks and about the actual rowing, but there was a huge amount on shore. Our support crew were doing a huge amount of work to keep us going, really.
Tell us a bit about how something like this comes about then. How do you get involved in this?
So I was just really fed up of university, as I think by the time you get into third year you are really done with it. You're writing your dissertation. I had 10,000 words to write. Just seems like such an adventure in itself that you're never going to get to the end. So I was quite regularly visiting a website called Escape the City, which is brilliant. If you're looking for a job, it's basically recruitment, but for kind of more interesting jobs, a bit quirky. And Laura, who was the person organising the row, had put an advert saying, "Are you woman enough to row the Pacific?" Automatically my ears cropped up thinking, well, yeah, I'm woman enough. Love that you've said that, for starters, and just like kept thinking about it, kept going back to it. And I've done quite a few different things, not like this, but similar in the way that I've gone, yeah, sounds great, tick box, sign up, oh my god, I've got into it, what am I going to do? So I've climbed Killy, I've done a few adventures, ran the London Marathon when I was 18, but only signed up to it in February, so had a month to train, just last minute. That's my kind of thing. It's too daunting to plan for ages in advance. So I sent off an application and, literally sent a video of myself, had a piercing in each side of my nose, flipped my hair over, looked a right mess. Was kind of like, I'm really passionate about charity, please select me, my sister just thought, no way. And actually got a call back saying, we'd like to interview you along with quite a few other women. And we went and had to do kind of mental interviews. I don't think they're called that. The girls would be saying I shouldn't call them that. Psychological interviews. There we go. And also some physical stuff where we had to do the plank and things like that to see how strong we were. But I don't think it was actually, you'd have to speak to Laura and Ems what they were looking for. But I know they'd had a recruitment process in the past where they were looking for people that'd done lots of endurance marathons, and it was all about performance. And actually for this recruitment drive they were looking for people that kind of said yes and, had the go-get attitude to kind of see the adventure through, and not necessarily, we were trying to do it fast, but we were also trying to get there, and they needed a variety of different characters. That's how, I don't know why they chose me, to be honest. Did that, and yeah, they said that they'd like me to join them. At the time I couldn't join them, I had quite a lot going on. I really wanted this job in the city, wanted to earn loads of money and be really rich, and actually I said no to Laura. I said I couldn't do it, went and did the job in the city and thought, I don't want money. I want to have adventures. What the heck am I doing working 12 hours every single day, with bankers selling them properties? And so got a call from Laura and said, will you join us for one leg rather than the whole thing? And that was like 100%.
Well, how long was your leg?
My leg was, I think, 3.5 months, 77 days.
So that's 77 days in Doris.
77 days in Doris. But I mean, if you, as you would have seen in the film, the journey itself was planned to be 6 months long. But it was the year of El Nino, which is where the currents are all a bit strange. It's not a very technical definition of what it is, but the direction of the flow of the water is basically not always going the right way. Can you tell that I'm not really that qualified when people say I'm an athlete? And I'm like, well, the water's going a bit wishy-washy and I don't really know what it's called. So yeah, it slowed us right down. And in the second leg especially, the girls got quite literally stuck in the doldrums. So it ended up being a 9-month journey rather than a 6-month journey. So I think my leg was meant to be 60 days, ended up being 77 days, for example.
Yeah, I saw the bit on the second leg where they were stuck in the doldrums, and it looked painful.
I mean, that leg I think was meant to be 65 days and it ended up being 90 days. And actually, you know, when you're kind of looking at numbers going, wow, 60, 90, not that far away. That's like a whole month. That's like a whole month extra. And this is the thing about some of these numbers when you're plucking them out. You have to put them into different scenarios in your head to understand that is 30 more nights on Doris. And if you work out how many more hours of rowing that is on a really sore bum and sore hands, and psychologically, it was really hardcore on the girls when they got to land. Yeah, they'd had a really hard time.
Yeah, that comes across in the film. And the other, and on a real practical note on that as well. So they planned to do it in 60 days, and it took them 90 days, an extra month. When you pack in that boat with food, how much extra do you pack?
Yeah, so it's hard to obviously pack. I can't remember how many calories. I think we were consuming something like 7,000 calories a day. Really a lot of calories. And I think originally we'd planned to have a main meal at lunchtime and a main meal at dinner time. And when I'm saying main meal, it's like chicken tikka masala, like heavy dishes. They're honestly delicious. Have you had any of these foods, like powder and then boom, chicken tikka masala?
I've had like freeze-dried expedition foods. Yeah,
that's it. That's all we had.
yeah.
Exactly. And so they're pretty heavy. So we actually only ended up really having one main meal a day, one big breakfast, which was like porridge, or there was apples and something, strawberries and something. Like cereal, muesli, loads of different foods. So we had quite a lot left over in that leg, because that's kind of where they started to look. But towards the end, you're really diminishing. I can't remember. They had loads of beef curry left over at the end of that leg. And what we were doing is we were writing a blog every day that we were on board, and that was sent with our Iridium Go, like satellite thing, to land. And then one of us, Ella Houghton, was also in our support crew, so she was constantly on land uploading the blogs. So that's how I got to know all of this information. For example, they had loads of beef curry left. So they were fine, just loads of main meals left over, no puddings, not many snacks, because we also had snack packs that we made up, which was like a little plastic bag with some of our drinks in, but like a type Diorolite type salt and sugar and water thing to keep us hydrated, nuts, fruit, protein bar, etc in this snack. They ran out of snack packs and no snacks, and they actually were what kept me going, because they were nice and quick and you could eat them when you were rowing. You know, if you've got a powdered food, chicken tikka masala, you've got to make that with a kettle. You cannot do that when you're rowing. Whereas in our leg, towards the end, we completely ran out of main meals. So we were eating so much. In that last week, it was sugar overload, because it was just all desserts that we had left over. Loads of porridge, which is all right, but it was sugary porridge. So our poor teeth for that last leg. But on the beef curry note, because I was going in on the third leg and we'd had a big chat to our psychologist, me and Lizanne, because we were fitting into a crew that had already been established, things that, you know, I was really concerned about slotting into the crew. Where would I slot in? And one of the things I told myself is that I had to like beef curry, because there was loads of beef curry left over. So I'd had a big word going, you will like beef curry, and then they'll definitely like me. I can eat all of the beef curry that's left over. First day, first shift, had my beef curry. It was disgusting. And it was such an epic veil on me liking beef. I mean, it was all right, but I was not going to eat that every day. So I think we still had beef curry left at the end of the row as well.
Yeah. What was your favourite food then?
A big well, it depends on the weather. If it was a rainy day, we all loved a bit of shepherd's pie with ketchup mixed around. We also had Maggie noodles and these amazing tuna sachets though. So Maggie noodles and tuna was a brilliant snack for when you're inside the cabin, that we all liked. There was what was it? A rice. Yeah, a rice with I don't know, some veg that was really nice. They were all different. Carbonara was good. It's just a weird thing to get your head around though, that you're eating chicken and you just don't know how long that chicken's been dead. And suddenly it springs up and it's almost like it's going cock-a-doodle-doo back alive to you. It's I don't know, I didn't really like it. But no, curries were quite good actually. Yeah, curries had loads of flavour.
Tell us, you've not told us about Doris yet. Tell us a bit about Doris.
Doris is a boat. She's pink, she's bright pink, and she is 29 foot. So if you can picture that, probably better, because I'll do like, well, it's from here to here, but on Zoom you can't really picture that. So yeah, 29 foot. She had a cabin at one end, which 2-man tent, bath with a lid on top, single mattress. They're normally the comparisons we give. That's where we had our off shift. So we were basically rowing 2 hours on deck, 2 hours in the cabin, 2 hours on deck, 2 hours in the cabin, 24 hours a day. And that was the rotation. So we were in pairs, 2 in the cabin, 2 out of the cabin. Worked really nicely with the way that you were going, but she was pretty small. You know, when you're sleeping in the cabin for your off shift, you'd kind of have a chat with the person you're sharing with, saying, am I going on my back or are you going on your back? You couldn't really both go on your back because it's sweaty, it's sticky, you don't want to be touching. And obviously if it's rough, you wake up in a different position in the cabin anyway. But we did have another cabin at the end, but it was super, super small. So if we were in the middle of a storm or there was a storm coming, it got really rough. Sometimes if it was rough, it was okay. If the waves were all going in the right direction and it was pushing us, it was a lot of fun. But if the waves were confused, that's when you're likely to capsize. And to be honest, you don't want to capsize when there's people on deck. We were attached with like some surf, well, you probably use them in your paddleboarding, some surf leashes with Velcro, and they were like whenever we were outside. But to be honest, one of my biggest fears was that I would go to sleep in the cabin with my partner and we'd wake up and the other two wouldn't be there because, you know, a big wave would hit, but you're in a deep sleep because you're so tired. But no, never happened. None of us went overboard unless we wanted to go overboard for a swim, but even then we were always attached, so we were really lucky. So Doris, we had sliding rowing seats, a bit like a rowing machine. We had put all of our food was stowed away below deck. We had a water maker, which was really cool, with reverse osmosis. We pressed a button and basically sucked the salt out of the sea and kept the water, put the salt back in the sea, which was great until the last leg, when that broke. So for the last leg, we had a hand pump. I should have mentioned that probably in my chapter. We had a hand pump where you had to pump water, and oh my God, the water maker that was electric made 30 litres of water in an hour. When we were pumping it, it was it was a terrible amount where we couldn't really use it other than drinking. It was a terrible time. We'd row for 2 hours, come back on deck and pump water for an hour, and then have an hour off and then row again. It was horrendous because it's just so hot in the sun. You want to stay out of it, but couldn't.
I was going to ask you about water anyway, because you can carry enough food, but you can't carry enough water. So
we did have some water on the boat, actually, just to hold us down. Is it ballards? They're called ballards, to weigh us down. Ballasts.
Ballast. See, I should have done it. I should have gone and done it.
Obviously, in terms of showering, salt water, I mean, you must know this even from your trip, that salt sores are horrible. And it's so weird because I was always under the impression, if you've got an ulcer, swish a bit of salt water around your mouth and it'll get rid of it. Like, I thought it was going to be really good for our skin, but salt sores are horrible. So we had to keep really clean, and after each shift we give ourselves a bit of a wash down. But as Ems kept reminding me, when you're doing a water sport, you are going to get wet. So stop getting upset when a big wave lands on top of your head. So every shift you're like looking at your arms and you're covered in salt beads. You've got salt in your hair, so but we only had water bottles, so swish here, bit of a wash everywhere, and then back in for 2 hours and then you do it all again. Crazy times.
Yeah, stand-up paddleboarding, because you're not really in contact with anything. You stood on the board. You don't really. I didn't really suffer with sores. Blisters, yeah. I had some beautiful.
Yeah, so actually, I was checking you out, and I saw your hands look pretty. Yeah, I mean that's what ours were like. It's hardcore, those blisters. Although ours, to be honest, we called them rhino horns because they weren't blisters that were going to pop. They were more like our hands were just changing shape completely. Yeah. Which sounds really attractive. But yours look more like, on your little finger, it looked more like a poppable one.
I had poppable blisters, and obviously I didn't. A couple of them did pop, which was horrible because it hurt. But it made the paddle more grippy. So in a funny way, it was a bit of a help. But then they went black and they calloused over, and then they start getting absorbed back into hands.
For us, it was more our bums, because you're touching a salty surface, and you're like it's pressure. It was pressure sores mixed with salt. I mean, very angry bums, but also all of I don't know what you'd call your hinges. Yes. I guess of your body. So like behind your knees. This where we're constantly doing that, and you're catching the salt, but also mixed with sweat. Yeah, it was horrible. We also had with our hands, they what do we call them? Monster claw. Yeah, because they just stay in that position. You probably had this as well, though, and then you'd get into bed and stretch them out, and then you'd wake up and they're kind of back in that position. And I still have a bit of jip from my. I mean, Laura gave me what's the thing where you stick the needles in? I am having terrible word finding ability tonight.
Acupuncture.
Yeah, she gave me that when we got to land, which really helped. But now I can sometimes feel it when my hands get really cold, a bit of a niggle with jars, opening jars and stuff.
So in the video and in your story, in your chapter for the book, I think it's actually in the video, you say in the video, you are the most underqualified rower by far.
Have I just I think I've just totally lived that impression. Now you're like, oh yeah, she definitely is.
You certainly have. And then in the video, somebody says in the video, you're just setting off from Samoa, and the video gives the impression it's literally the first few hours, and someone says, Meg really doesn't know what she's letting herself in for, and I can't wait for her to find out. And I don't know if that's a good thing or.
Oh my God, that's in like the first half an hour. We've literally just left shore because I left with them. So I'd never. Sorry, have you asked your question or have I interrupted you?
No, carry on.
Okay, sorry, I'm terrible at podcasts.
I didn't ask a question.
Again, no, I was going to answer that one. I didn't know if you had another one. I had never rowed before I got to Samoa. And as I say in my chapter, it got to the point where our psychologist was like, you really need to get on a boat because you need to know what it feels like. You need to set your brain up that you know. And I just thought, if I get on a boat, I think I might hate it. And, you know, we've got a speedboat in my family. We go water skiing quite a lot in the bay where we live. And I've been to the south of France all my life, water skiing. You know, it's in my mind, I was totally set up for the ocean. Done loads of experience as well. I knew what a rough sea was. I'd been on the boat across the channel. Like really had set myself up knowing that I know I feel a bit sick sometimes. So thought I'd be fine. So Ems took me around Apia Harbour, so in Samoa. And we went around a bit and I was like, gonna be fine, it's all right. That first shift, oh my God, I was thinking I'm so unfit. We hadn't been allowed to do any cardio in all of our training because you lose weight if you do cardio and it like works a different part of your muscle. We couldn't have any muscle atrophy before we got onto the boat because we were building, eating. I think I put on about 2.5 stone. And getting on the boat, I was like, I'm so unfit. This is horrendous. And you can see like any rowers that watch it, my technique is just terrible. So by the end of the row, I was actually all right at rowing. I knew how to use my legs and wasn't just moving my arms really quickly. And now at the gym, I see people doing that on the rowing machine. I think, you're not doing it right. But that was me, 100%. So, but yeah, got there in the end. And I think probably by the end of the row, I could row.
Yeah, excellent. The other really interesting thing that stood out to me as well is, so you're the fourth person. So there's 3 legs to this trip. and every leg had a different fourth person.
Yeah, good way of saying that. That was a very simple way.
So you took over on the third leg. So you joined the crew of 3 ladies who'd been in a boat together, rowing 2 hours on, 2 hours off for how many days?
So the first leg ended up being something like 74, I think, and then the second leg was 90. A long time. I mean, like 6 months they'd been together. Yeah, and they'd also been together in the build-up of the row, because this had taken 2 years. Well, it had taken 4 years to plan. Ended up being postponed for a year. Like, this was a really long project, and I had barely met them 3-4 times before I went to Samoa. So yeah, no, they knew each other.
So psychologically, then, how did you feel going into that situation, and how did you handle it?
It was a lot better because Lizanne was in the same position for the second leg, so she'd come in as a reserve as well, quite late into the process, and we had been Skyping a lot, and we both felt quite underqualified when we got involved, and obviously it was our job to get as qualified as we could for the row, and knew where we would slot in. We also had to accept what it was going to be like, control only the controllables. There's no point overthinking anything. When we got to our country, so Lizanne was Hawaii when she got there. When I got to Samoa, we had a day of kind of slotting in with the team, and it was really well done that we had separate time with each one of the rowers. When Iz had returned back from the first leg to be replaced by Lizanne, it all gets a bit confusing. I'd spent a lot of time with Izzy learning about everything. But also, we'd been suggested by our psychologist to take something with us that was kind of new and exciting. So the girls were already excited because they got pretty bored of the same story. So it was like a whole new bit of energy coming in. Lizanne took some fishing kit to try and do some fishing whilst they were in their off shifts. Right. I took, so I'd been reading the blogs, and the girls have been saying they really miss green. So I thought, I know what I'm going to take. I'm going to take some cress seeds. So I took some cress seeds with me, thinking cress grows in all environments. It will be completely fine. Felt really proud of my choice of things to take. And I thought we can sprinkle it in our food. The cress seeds leaked out, and actually, like, we had all seeds underneath the deck, and it was just really annoying. It was another complete failure of mine trying to fit in. But I had also, because the girls had found out in the second leg they would be spending Christmas on Doris, which was a really big hit. Obviously, you know, Christmas is time for family. They're all excited. They'd be back in time. Knew that. So it was my job as the Christmas fairy to make Christmas exciting. So I packed a Christmas tree. All the parents had given me presents to take. No wonder we were a bit delayed on our time schedules, because we had a freaking Christmas tree, but we had Christmas pudding. Like, we had the whole works of Christmas. So I felt like that worked quite well as well.
The boys picked that one out because there's one bit on the film and you're all sat in the boat. And the boat is tiny. I mean, let's put it into perspective. I mean, how big is the boat?
29 foot in length. I can't remember how the width is.
So what could you equate that to? Like a bit bigger.
Probably the width of a netball court. The width of a netball court.
The width of, I don't play netball. I've never played netball in life.
Yeah, I think maybe I think it's a bit longer than a minibus, but obviously it depends on the size of a minibus. 25 meter swimming pool. Is 25 meters the same as? I think it's 9 foot. Oh dear, this is not good. If the girls listen to this podcast, I've done a really terrible job of all the facts.
What's 9 foot? What's 9 foot?
29 foot is how much in feet?
29 foot.
Yeah, 29 foot.
So we work it out.
Yeah, I'm going to Google it, because otherwise I'm going to make even more of a fool of myself.
Go on then, Google it.
29. Oh, no, I've already told you it's 29 foot. Sorry. How many is that in meters? I'm trying to find out.
Shall we ask Siri and then just upset everyone's phones?
Yeah.
Hey Siri, what's 29 foot in meters?
29 feet is 8.84 meters.
Yeah. So that's
about 9 foot, but I meant meters.
Yeah. So that's about the same as like a big minibus.
Okay, big minibus then. There we go. But the width was the width was small. I can't really, it's hard to equate the width, because you've got, I mean, to put it into perspective, you've got 2 rowers sitting in front of each other. If we needed a shower, there was nowhere to shower because the rowing was constantly happening. So for your shower, you would sit opposite each other in the width and do your little squirty bit whilst the two girls were rowing, and you like couldn't move. It was really, and I talk about in my chapter actually how getting in and out of the cabin door is horrendous. So I put this human-sized cat flap, but bearing in mind I was carrying a bit of extra luggage because I've been eating all these donuts ready for the row, and the girls had lost so much weight. So honestly, when I was having a shower, the boat would tip. I was pretty hefty on that row until the end, and I just could not get in this human-sized cat flap. And it got to like, I don't know, week 2 or week 3, where the girls realised. So every day of the row we'd stick a sticker on our cabin, like the side of our cabin door, and it got to week 2, I don't know how many days, and they were like, where have all the stickers been going? Because the stickers have all been coming off. They'd all been stuck to my bum because I'd had to lean on there to then try and get through this human-sized cat flap. And honestly, I just could not get in any form of elegance. And also, you're not used to it being a bit choppy, where you're kind of on your knees, you're kind of crouching because you're so worried about going overboard. It's just not attractive trying to get across the boat when it's choppy. It's a really hilarious thing watching someone.
Yeah, that comes. I read your story as well. That comes across in your story as quite funny. I can just, and especially now I've seen the film as well. You know, I read the story and I watch the film, and I can just imagine you trying to like get in and out of there.
Yeah.
and then these 3 other ladies that have spent 6 months in there that have probably got it off like that. Just
honestly, they swung in and out, and I was like, "How should I try and put my right leg in first?" And they'd all go, "Yeah, try that now." Oh no, yeah, it was not my forte.
But yeah, it was great. And when you look at the film with you guys all sat there with Father Christmas hats on and capes, and yeah, brilliant.
It was more when cargo ships were about. We didn't see that many, but like whenever a cargo ship was in the distance, they'd have to let us know, or we'd have to let them know and say, please don't hit us, we can't really maneuver that well. And we had some cargo ships pulling in all their fish because they were worried about a boat that wasn't moving. We were rowing pretty hard on those days. But then, so we had cargo ships that came close to us, and there's 4 women in bikinis in the middle of the Pacific going, hi. So it's just really bizarre. Anyone that saw us, I think, probably would have, they might still be talking about it because quite a weird thing to see, pink rowing boat.
I think one thing on the film, there's quite a few aerial shots, and it seems to be traveling really slowly.
Yeah, really slowly. I mean, sometimes we weren't even traveling at all because we were actually just rowing to hold our position, because if we weren't rowing, we would have been going backwards or going to Papua New Guinea or any of these places that I'd love to go to, but not on that journey. Those were the days when you feel like you're rowing a treacle, or you're tired. Like, it's great when you can see movement. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe in this shift we've done 2 whole miles, nautical miles. But the shifts where you go, we did minus 0.5, and you've actually taken back a little further. It's just a real head mess when you're trying to work out in your head how many days you're going to be at sea for, and you've gone backwards on that day.
Yeah. So what happened? So in your leg, what was the furthest distance that you were away from land?
I think about 1,000 miles. I don't think we ever strictly knew, to be honest, because my leg, I don't think it was any more than 1,000 miles, but it might have been less because we obviously had quite a few of the Pacific Islands that we went past. So we had like Vanuatu that we came really quite close. I mean, it wasn't quite close, but you could stink it. Land is so smelly in such an amazing, when you've just smelled fish and smelly feet, land is so, like, it just smells of land. Well, I say it in my chapter in the best way I can. It's basically just loads of commas of all the different things that I could think of that I'd missed. So we went past Vanuatu, we went past some atolls as well, and which were really cool, but you just don't want to get close to them because you'd have so many riptides. Where else? We went past another island. Fiji we were relatively close to. So in the middle leg, that's when they were really far from land, for sure. But we saw some pretty weird things in the sky because you don't see many planes. One night we had we saw this like green floating star that was in the sky floating about and then like landed. or went down and then we didn't see it anymore. There was a few unexplained things that we saw, and it was quite weird because you try and, as humans, I think we try and answer everything, and our blog was brilliant. We'd be like, oh my god, we just saw this, and we'd be really careful. 2 people had to see something, otherwise it was just you and your hallucinations, because we hallucinated quite a lot. But that one in particular, I can't remember who I was with when I saw that. It might have been Laura, can't remember. But it's funny seeing things that you can't explain, and then your mind gets a bit, what is below us, and you just have to really keep control of your mind.
Yeah, and because you can't get off, can you? You can't give up.
We had our psychologist Keith Goddard. He contacted us every day with a quote, but also each week we had to do like a psychological assessment of ourselves, where we'd be like, what's keeping you up at night? Quite funny question, because we were up at night anyway, but things that were right, like how are you feeling mentally on a scale of 1 to 10? How are you feeling physically? What's, questions that really would trigger, anything that was going on. We'd had lots of conversations with Keith, if something happened to us, how would we want our family to be told? Would we want our family to be told? If someone died at home, would we want to be told when we're so powerless? Would it send us, mentally negatively spiraling? So there was a lot, like truly, when people ask now, what advice would you give to someone doing a big expedition, have a psychologist, because the mind, you've just got to look after your mind. And if you talk to all of us, we would all say that this is a majorly psychological expedition, like 95% psychological, that you've just got to keep going. Yeah. Physical, your body can keep going, but your mind keep going?
I mean, to a lesser extent, I sort of get that when I did my paddle. I think it was.
You were saying about one day where you just repeated your destination again and again and again.
Yeah, I was doing it for about 3 hours, and I didn't realise I'd done it until sort of about half an hour away, and I thought, I've just been chanting this place for the last 3 hours, and I'd just completely lost track of time, and I was just paddling and chanting. And I wasn't chanting in my head, I was chanting out loud.
Yeah,
but,
you just do.
and that's just, that was just a 7-day trip around an island.
Not just.
Compared to yours, it certainly was.
I can't imagine doing anything on my own, and keeping yourself going. Yeah, doing stuff on your own, I think it's amazing when people do that on their own.
So right at the beginning of that trip, before not before your story began, because you were on the team already, but before you joined the boat, before you hopped on board Doris, they, on the first leg, they had to turn back. They had some problems with the batteries. What happens when you're right in the middle of the crossing and something like that goes wrong? What are the contingencies for that?
So it really depends what it is. If it's that someone's chopped their leg off, for example, or like someone's really hurt themselves, it would vary. And we had our psychologist, and we'd worked a lot with our psychologist about a what if plan, that we kind of had scenarios of what if this happens, what if this happens, what if this happens. It would have been a call to a cargo ship a lot of the time, because we couldn't have been rescued by helicopter most of the places that we were. So it would have been the kind of mayday call and the hope that someone would be relatively close and come and get us. We were pretty low to the ocean, so we didn't see a lot of boats with our eyes. But that's not to say that actually 10 miles away there wasn't. Sometimes we were crossing shipping lanes and you'd see quite a few for a few hours, for a day, and then you wouldn't see any for 6 weeks. But yeah, no, it would have been a cargo ship probably coming out. Same if we had someone that went overboard and had been floating away. We had an EPIRB, which is kind of like a siren thing that you pull down, and that would have contacted Falmouth Harbour. That would have been our kind of onshore support, even though they're in England, that would have got in touch with the bases around where we were as well. And I think it's the law of the sea, as soon as you see someone in trouble, it's just the first boat on hand. So if we capsized and couldn't get back up, you hear terrible stories about about different things that happen and people that get saved and people that don't get saved. It was really dangerous what we were doing, but we had all of the plans in place to make it as, you know, as safe as it could be, basically.
I mean, when it comes down to it, though, you know, if you're that far away from land and
Yeah.
something really goes wrong, it's going to take someone a long time to get to you. So you really, when you're setting off on that journey, you're setting off knowing that, you know, that could be it. If the worst happens, that could be it for you.
I mean, I wasn't a mother at the time, and now I am. And what my mum says about it is just, it makes me feel sick that my daughter could do the same thing and I have to be in that same position. And it's that kind of question of, darling, of course you could go and do it. Please don't go and do it. You know, I would never say no to my child to doing something so amazing that they're so lucky to be given the opportunity. But I do not want to be waiting for 77 days, or, you know, the other girls, they're paying 257 days of, you know, where's the blog, where are they right now? Oh my god, it's 2 a.m. they are still rowing. What is even the time? Because that was another weird thing, when we're rowing through all of these different time zones, what even is the time where they are? And I really struggled with that on the road, because I'm quite a time specific person of like, I'm having dinner at this time, but what even is the time? You know, and like we had to keep changing the shifts because like we're keeping going in the same direction, and it would get to the point where your night shift would be beginning at 3 p.m. and it wasn't dark, so you'd have to shift all the clocks just so it made sense mentally that you were not having, you know, it was a really weird thing for me. And the other girls had just got so used to it, saying, just shut up, it's just 2 hours, you don't need to know what the time is, it's light, it's dark, you're hungry, you're not hungry. And it's a really weird thing, not being controlled by time, but being also very controlled by time.
Yeah, I bet. So how old's your daughter now?
My daughter is just 2.
Right. So my daughter's 18. So get ready in a few years' time when she comes back and says, "Oh, Mum, I've got this idea that," and you're like, and she'll be able to turn around and say, "But you did it."
Yeah, I mean, at the moment we're I'm like feeding it to her at the moment. Through lockdown, we've done 100 miles of walking. And so I think we've now done 72 miles of walking, and she's just 2 and she's now like running along, and I'm like, oh, you walk so far, what's the next thing that you're going to want to do? Why am I doing this? Why am I starting to feed the like raising money and doing challenges? Yeah, I've got a rod for my own back on that one, I think.
Yeah, it's great though, isn't it? I mean, to me, what you did is just amazing. Do you think part of you sort of signed up for it without really realizing, or were you fully aware?
I never thought that I would get chosen, but with this is just what I do. It's just how I get itchy feet. I have a look around the internet and I will find something that I will then be doing, and it might be, you know, my next one might be the Marathon des Sables, it might be but I will not be planning it 2 years in advance. It will be like, right, I'm going in 3 weeks time to go and do this. So, and that's one of the things as well with Laura. When I went through the first recruitment process, it was going to be the year after, and psychologically I was just like, I just don't think I can think about this for 2 years, you know, or a year and a half. I can't remember the exact timescales. If you need me and it's like 3 weeks until I have to go, I'll be fine. Which is kind of, you know, some people would be really baffled by that and think that's crazy. It's just, we all work in different ways, don't we? And so I had thought about it. And obviously from then on, I say about it in my chapter that it really got me down, people being shocked by it, because then it makes you question yourself. I just want people going, yeah, like 3 cheers, let's go, let's do it. And I'm like, that's how I function, on just kind of being ultra positive. Otherwise, to be honest, I go into a real nosedive and I end up being really, really negative and can't. I think I just have to be up there and keep it. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. I can't explain it, but I'm trying to work on it, because it's not actually that healthy to be that spontaneous.
You get yourself into all sorts of scrapes as well.
Yeah, I've definitely got a lot better, and I think the rowers helped me with that.
You do get a lot of people, don't you? You know, I mean, even with my paddle, you know, I was never really that far away from land. I think the furthest I was away from land was 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers.
That day where you were going out and you were talking to Ruben, who sounds like a freaking awesome guy, about, you know, should you do it, should you not, should you stay, but it's going to take you longer, should you take the risk? It's those decisions, isn't it? And making those decisions, and it's hard, especially once you've made the decision. You just got to go with it.
And
you
then,
want people to not tell you the risks.
That's it, exactly. It's just committing to it and saying, right, I'm going to go, and you go, and that's it. You just got to. There's no point. And then you get to a point where you're halfway, and it's like, well, I'm halfway now. I can't go back. I've got to carry on.
I mean, you said, in answer to your question, though, to be fair, if you'd asked my mum the same question, she would say I definitely had not processed it, had definitely not thought about it. And it was like, I think in the build up, she was concerned that this was just going to like hit me, like, what the hell am I doing? And I think when I came back, something happened on another boat. I can't remember what it was. And she just said that I went completely green, as in like, how could that, like, no, that doesn't happen. It's safe. And as if I just had no idea actually what we'd done. And I think all of us are like that with the road. I don't think we realise the hugeness of what it was, and now it's very easy to make it all rose tinted, and I love all of the girls, I love everything about the road, it's amazing, and it's hard to think of the awful times, and it's weird, isn't it, when you look back on these really happy things and actually it was freaking horrendous some days.
Yeah, rose tinted glasses and all that. So what just on that then, what was the hardest moment, the lowest moment?
Honestly, being in some, like, seeing the girls come into land, I think it hit me a little bit then that I really felt like they would, you know, start when people say about they see, like, I don't know, Rihanna or whatever, and they're starstruck. I was starstruck when I saw them, thinking, oh my God, they are incredible godlike humans, and why the heck am I here? And they're like just going into yourself thinking, like, I've got to be, this isn't me, but I've got to pretend to be someone, and actually I was that someone. It's just you constantly questioning yourself. So that was really hard, that week in Smurd, just fitting into the team and thinking I can't do it, but I'm here and I can't get out of it. But I'd say the first week, because I realised that our life is made up of so many comparisons, and I thought I'd seen rough waves, and then another bigger wave came, and I was like, I haven't seen, and then a bigger wave came, and then a bigger wave. And I remember on like one of my first or second shifts with Laura, me saying, please can we go inside, and she was saying, it's all right. And I really, like, in my mind I've got like a cartoon of us just going up and down these waves, and me just, because I didn't even row, like those first few days I sat there and held on, thinking I don't know how I'm meant to sit here and pick up the oars. So it took a lot for me to get, I mean, that first week was pretty crazy. We did a lot of mileage, and I was clinging on for dear life, thinking, what am I doing and how can I get off? So that was quite scary.
It's quite funny on the film because don't take this the wrong way, but
you don't ever see me rowing?
No. You're all there, and you're all, you know, getting ready to set off, and there's people filming you on the boat and all this stuff, and you just look like the kid who's just going up to big school.
Oh my, and that's exactly, like you've said it. I should have used that in the book, actually. Great simile, because that's totally what I felt like. I also had a really, I don't want to say a phobia because I don't want to exaggerate, but of sharks. And like we go water skiing a lot, and when I fall off the skis, I'm always like, would I rather the shark eat my bum or my toes? I don't know which to keep in the water. And then I go in the Pacific, and it's actually a real fear because there's loads of sharks. And so I had to do a lot of work with Keith, that basically dealing with the fact that I was going to see sharks. And we saw a lot of sharks. You know, they weren't all man-eating, trying to chomp us up, but there was, I mean, I was definitely on a shift with gnats, and there was quite an aggressive shark that was circling us, but it was dark and we didn't know. On the whole, they were all really friendly, and we had a few follow us, and we named them male Spanish names, and it was all great. But things like that, getting your head around the fact that if a shark did try and chomp your boat, that's quite scary. It just fills me with shivers. I really, yeah. Whereas Nats absolutely loves sharks, and we had a bit of a, you know, that she would always be really excited and I'd be quivering that there was a shark there. I just sound like such a wuss and such a pain to have on board, and I shouldn't. The girls would be like, you shouldn't sound like this, you were great, but I end up being like, oh, I'm scared, and it wasn't like that all the time.
Well, you did it, didn't you? You did your days. I bet you're as fit as them at the end of it.
Oh God, yeah, no, it was yeah, and we had some really, towards the end that was really hard as well, because we had a deadline, there was bad weather coming, we had to get to shore, and that was some serious, like we really had to row towards the end, because obviously it gets shallower as you go over the Great Barrier Reef, and if it's shallow and there's a cyclone, it's going to be really choppy, and then you might capsize, and it's just, yeah, to those last few days I don't think anyone has got, seeing land was exciting, but it was kind of this deadline of, right, we're seeing land, it's really shallow, we've got to get a move on. That the last few days, and obviously we ended up making landfall on a beach, which you'll see in the see in the documentary. It didn't necessarily go to plan. We did it and it was great, but that was not the plan.
You didn't mention that bit in the book.
No, because it wasn't really, to me, I hadn't, to the girls that have been on the boat for 9 months, and you, in your mind, you set up that we're going into the harbour. I hadn't thought about the end. In my mind, it hadn't really been, like the girls that were doing the whole journey, it was such a big focus, the end. For me, I thought really a lot about getting on the boat, but then I kind of just took it day by day, and I was really happy with that. I didn't really have the same, I did want to get home totally, and I wanted it to end, but at the same time I hadn't been away for such a, it wasn't a whole year of my life like it was for that. I mean, 9 months is a really long time. 3.5 months is a long time, but it's not, so I didn't really mind as much as it was a real hit when we found out we were going to have to do that on the boat.
Well, that looked quite dangerous.
Yeah, it wasn't the best crash landing. It definitely wasn't. We were very, very lucky though that we managed to get the boat turned around. This doesn't make that, you really have to watch the documentary to see this, but we kind of came into the shore pointing onto shore, and then the waves flipped us around, and then we were side on the shore, kind of crashing, almost capsizing, and then we almost beached it. So yeah, we were really lucky that we managed to turn it around and get back out of that, otherwise it would have been not great as a finish, wouldn't have been great.
People need to watch the film, don't they, Meg? It's definitely worth it.
I think Sarah Moshman, who made it, our producer, she actually found out about our row via Twitter, via Womenthology, I think it was, on Twitter, and said that she wanted to make it. So we were so lucky to have someone to do that, and obviously a huge risk for her, because she didn't, as we didn't, we might have done one leg, and that's not really a story to tell, as much as doing 3 legs. So it was a big risk, and it obviously paid off for her, and we're so lucky to have that documented of what we did.
So we talked about your hardest moment. What is there anything that stands out as your best moment?
There's not one particular moment, but there are these, and I have it now, and I'm really aware of it now. It's like checking in with yourself and going, I am just having a moment of euphoria right now. I am so happy and everything just feels right. I'm calm, I'm content. Just give me a moment to be in my euphoric state. And there were so many of those where you might have had a hard shift the one before, and you come back and you're like, look where I am. And when you just realize how perfect everything is, especially like the shift before, I might be moaning about why the hell am I here, or it was really splashy, whatever. Yeah, so those moments of euphoria, but also the friendships that when you're stuck on a boat with 3 other girls, you really get to know them, and you also really listen to each other, because you don't have a phone that's popping up with another message, you don't have someone else shouting in your ear, you don't have a dentist appointment to get to, whatever it is, you are there totally in the present. And I came back off the boat being like, I'm not going to have a phone, I'm totally going to listen, I want to talk about everyone's life story and get really deep. And of course my phone's back on, and it's hard in this daily life of this getting called from here to here. So I'll always be grateful for those moments. And I don't see the girls enough now, that we all live in different parts of the country, but we have got such a special bond of what we experienced together on that boat. And it's that's, I mean, the wildlife was all right as well.
Okay. Well,
yeah, that was quite cool. There was a lot of that.
When you got back to Cairns, then what was it like seeing everyone, friends, family?
Weird. Felt quite disconnected. I think we honestly, as much as we wanted to get to land, I think we really all wanted to. So we all made sure that when we got to land, we were not going to get off the boat until we'd had this really big hug. And it was like that last moment just to soak it all in. And if that hug had lasted for any, like, that was just the most special hug of, nothing else matters right now. This is our thing. There were a lot of cameras there. We were completely exhausted. Like, it was just weird. We got called to the governor of Cairns or something. He was having an event and we had to go from there to this to there, and I'm standing there like bare feet in the shorts that I've worn the last 6 months, and I'm having like a good itch of my bum cheek. And it was like, one of the girls was like, you can't do that on land. You can't just be itching your body really vigorously. And things like that. It was just adapting into what is not what's acceptable, but it is kind of what is acceptable, and that you have to act in a certain way a bit. And so that was a big adjustment. Seeing our family was amazing. Sleep was weird because we kind of slotted straight back into a normal sleep routine. I mean, we had a week with our family whilst we were doing like media duties and stuff before we flew back, and on days out that we would do to go and see somewhere, I was very good at napping and having like very quick, because that we were used to it, but then we'd go to bed all night and that was fine. It was weird. And then coming back to England, it was weird as well because no one understood, and people were really in awe of what we'd done, which was amazing, but we didn't really know what we'd done, and we were kind of quite blasé and just wanted to talk about what other people had been up to. I don't know, it was weird. I can't really explain it. It was very strange, and I still think to this day we don't really know. You know, we just had a great time on a boat, and it was pretty hard as well, but people are obviously really impressed by it, and it's awesome, but it just feels a bit weird. I actually really struggled on the boat with it because we were raising money for people with breast cancer, and I was having a really nice time raising money, but I felt a bit weird that I was having a nice time. People have actually got cancer, and people were giving us lots of attention, and I didn't really want. I don't know. I was worried about coming back to land. I feel quite fortunate now when someone says, "Oh, what were you doing before this job?" That's not the answer, because it's such you can either, oh yeah, no, I did this thing, and that you can, oh, what was the thing? Oh no, I was on a boat for a while. And there's so many different ways, and we always laugh about it with the girls because there's so many different ways that you can say it, and you can either be really like, move on, that's great. And it was quite a few, anyone that we knew was like, well, you didn't just go away, did you? What did you do? And it's like, please, let's just move on, let's not. Or you can have a really long conversation. So it depends who you're with, and it's so amazing and so lucky. Like I on the boat decided that I wanted other children to feel the same way, or be inspired like I was inspired to say yes to the things I said at the beginning. So I came back and I qualified as a teacher, and seeing children's faces, you know, when like I'm doing a GCSE talk and it's like, guys, you've done your GCSE for yourself, but what is your Pacific? What are you going to do to cross? And seeing like their eyes flicker and go, oh my God, I can do it. And, you know, it's not about daddy's credit card, getting it out to go on this amazing adventure. No, it's, you know, I signed up completely not having any experience, completely not thinking I would get it. And you can put that into any scenario. Everyone has got a Pacific to cross, but what's yours? And it might be that you've got a maths test. It might be that you're running a marathon. It might be that you're going to the moon. It doesn't matter because it's personal to you. So it's the best decision I've ever made, training to be a teacher, because just seeing those little eyes light up is what makes it all worth it, doing the whole journey itself.
Yeah, excellent. I love that saying that, you know, everyone's got their own Pacific, and what's your Pacific? It's yeah, it's really powerful, isn't it? To think about it. Yeah. Another
thing we had, and you know, if anyone listening to this is thinking of planning an adventure, is team values. We had spirit, so it was something that we looked at whenever we were on our rowing seat looking out across the ocean, and it was just 5 6 words that we all had the same value, and it was basically going to get us to Australia: strength, perseverance, inspiration, resilience, integrity, and trust. And for me, like, the biggest one of that really is trust, because I really had to trust that I was going to something that was really well planned, and a boat that was because I hadn't been a part of building the boat. I hadn't been a part of all of the training that had been done and things like that. So it was really trusting that the girls also knew what they were doing. I think, yeah, team values are another thing that I would 100% recommend.
Right, shall we talk about the book? Shall we talk about the biggest book of yes?
Yeah.
So I know how I got involved with it. How did you get involved in it?
Send an email.
So did you see? So shall we just explain?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I saw an advert on Yes Tribe, which I'm a part of and is brilliant. And I wrote to John and said, I'd love to contribute, and he said okay.
So the Yes Tribe is a community of people. Yeah. It's on Facebook, but it's also a real thing where people meet each other properly. Really inspiring place, and not really a place, is it? It's a space, and you've got to be really careful what you say there, haven't you?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm never that careful of what I say, and it gets me into trouble sometimes. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just, do you know what it is? It's, I don't want anyone to take offense to this, but it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Yeah. And that's what I said to you earlier, that's why I joined all of this to start with, is because anyone can do it, and it's so relatable, because it's amazing when you hear about a venture where someone's gone to the moon or something really big, but to me it's just so not relatable. It's a lovely story to listen to, but I'm all about sitting there thinking, hold on, that's so cool, I can buy a paddleboard like you did. I can, it's actually the mental strength that gets you to order the paddleboard or send an application to escape the city, or get up early each morning to go for a run. I think it's amazing when people run every day. That's what Yes Tribe is to me.
Yeah, it's just about taking those opportunities, isn't it, and saying yes and believing in yourself that you can do things that you never thought you'd be able to do. I mean,
with the support of others.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason I say it's a dangerous place to say you're thinking about doing something is because everyone just turns around and says, do it. Do it.
Don't worry about the financial side. Don't worry about this in 10 years' time. You'll be so happy you did it. And it's all the things that I don't know, there's one side on your shoulder, isn't there? The good side, and then there's the bad side. And I don't know which Yes Tribe is, because it's kind of the side saying, do it. Yeah.
It can be a bit both, can't it, really?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So this is the third book. So there was the big book of yes, and then there was the bigger book of yes, and then this is the biggest book of yes. It's written by people who have said yes to something, anything in their life, and each person has written a chapter. So you did your chapter, Meg. You're 13.
Yeah, chapter 13. Lucky for some.
Yeah. I'm 30. Am I 39? I think I'm 30.
Yeah, you're 39.
I'm 39, but there's 48 stories in there. And then I think
49 stories.
49, sorry. I missed someone off. And then there's more in the ebook, isn't there?
Yeah, I think there's two extra ones in the ebook, I think.
Yeah,
but you can't pre-order the ebook. No, you can pre-order the ebook. You can't pre-order the hard copy of the book until the 1st of August.
Right, okay.
Right.
Yeah, so it's all written by, everyone's given the time up and done this for free. The editor, everyone that's publicising it is giving the time up for free. And it all the proceeds go to charity. Do you want to tell us a bit about the charity, Meg?
Yeah, it's called the Teddington Trust, and it's children that have got XP, which is basically where they can't go into UV light. And we heard from, I think, a trustee of the Teddington Trust last week, and I'm really proud to be supporting this charity. I think it's really important, and especially now I've got a child, even more so. I just find, I want to give them all the support I can.
It's just an awful disease, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is.
That's what I reckon.
Yeah. Oh,
that's what Siri reckons.
That's my Alexa's gone off again.
Oh, it's Alexa.
Hey, when people play this back, we're going to really mess up their Alexas, aren't we, from that bit earlier on? How did you find writing it?
I really enjoyed writing it. but it was hard because, as I said earlier, with these adventures that you do, it's really easy to think it was, you know, great fun, and it was great fun. But even when I talk to people now, you know, it's trying to get into the mindset of how awful and how hard it was. And so I really sat there, and I mean, one of the things that I do in my talks, actually, before I go and do a talk, is I have to really get myself back into the moment. There's two moments that I think of when I have to get myself back into how horrendous it was at some points. And one of them is I stand up and then I sit myself down in a seat and imagine that pain of sitting my seat bones down into the seat. And it was that moment where you'd sit there, you'd count to 10 with tears kind of coming towards your eyelids, and then you'd be okay after 10 seconds because it would kind of be numb. So that's one of them. And the other one is when a big wave was heading towards us from the side, whoever saw it, you or the person in front, you'd shout, "Hold on!" And you'd hold on to the, like, it wasn't a bar, it was a bit of material. Hold on to that with one hand, your oars with the other hand, and you'd literally look at the wave straight in the face. Because then you're prepared, and it's a bit like whiplash. If you're prepared for it, it comes over you, get washed off your seat, because that happens all the time. And then you sit there, your adrenaline's going, you have a bit of a giggle, then you get back on. But at night, you couldn't see the wave, and you didn't have that same warning. So the wave would still come, but it would then be on your head. And it's scary, and the adrenaline isn't a fun adrenaline. It's horrible, it's scary, you're cold, you're salty. It's that moment that I have to really try and tune into, because it was really scary. So I loved it, but it was hard to get back into that headspace of the smells of land, how much, you know, there was loads of things, but loved it when I got into the right headspace in the end.
Every author was partnered up with an artist for their chapter. Who was your artist?
Tanya Noble. She's done a really cool picture, actually.
Yes, done a very good one. And how did it work with your artist?
I actually had been signed up with another artist, but they didn't reply. So then I got put with Tanya, and I'm really grateful. She was amazing. She did it really, really quickly, and really happy with the end result. How about you? So thank you, Tanya.
Really good. I've got a friend who we had him on the very first Cavebelly podcast, actually, a guy called Paddy Martin. So yeah, he did a really cool picture of, it's a map of Mallorca with me in the middle, and it's like you know, the old-fashioned like Boys Own magazines. It's that type of picture. That's what he was trying to get at. So yeah, really happy with it. And every picture is really different, aren't they, in the book?
Yeah. No, I just think I really love the concept of this. I think I would like it in my toilet to read, you know, like a toilet read, because they're relatively short for each one, and they're all just so varied, the stories. You know, they're not all climbing mountains, they're not all rowing the Pacific, they're not all paddleboarding. They're completely different stories. Some are bigger adventures, some are smaller adventures, and all equally super cool. I'm really looking forward to reading it.